Bring it back.
Well, I'm here today with Abby Stern, who is a fabulous author and former Hollywood insider who's come to tell us about her book, According to a Source. This is it. For all of you watching the video, hi, Abby.
Hi, Erin.
You and your book side by side on our podcast. If you're watching the video, you can see this. And if not, I'm going to link up images to it in the show notes for the audio podcast. According to a Source is a fantastic book that I just plowed through. I loved every minute of it. We're going to talk in detail about it pretty much for the second half of the podcast today. And Abby, I just want to welcome you and ask you what kind of got you into this and what brought you to the world of fiction from being a Hollywood journalist?
Well, I'd always written and done creative writing, and I was actually acting and doing screenwriting. And I started working as a freelance celebrity journalist. And whenever I kind of told people what I did, they were really interested. And so I thought, okay, I think there's a story here. So I started just sitting at my computer. I never intended, it was never on my bucket list as a child to write a book specifically.
Really? Okay.
I knew how difficult it was. And it also just seemed so daunting to kind of have to write this story that was so many pages. You look at a book and you see the number of the page count, and it's very intimidating.
Yeah.
And you think it's for people like Stephen King that can churn out these, or like Michael, or what's John Grisham, where they just kind of,
right.
They have their formula and they're able to churn them out, and they're great. But I was very intense. But when I started writing and I kind of created a character and thought about what the story would be, it naturally took book form. And then you're kind of so far into it that you think, oh God, I better finish this, or that was just a horrible waste of my time. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And it's so funny because people say, I'm working on some more screenplay, film and television driven things right now. And people say oh, I didn't know you wrote scripts. And I said, no, that was what I was doing from the beginning, and the book kind of just happened. And they're like, oh, it just kind of happened. I'm like, yeah, over 10 years kind of just happened.
Is that how long it took? 10 years from the inception to publication?
It was, but I would put it down for 2 years at a time. So it was not consecutive, because again, it was, I think there was a little bit of fear there of, can I pull this off? And then, we get notes back from friends on drafts, and you're kind of my ego's shot. I think I need to take a little bit of time off from this before I go back to it. But so from the time I first had the idea until it was the hardback was published last May, it was a 10-year time span.
Oh my gosh. You stuck with it. That is really sticking with something to go 10 years. I mean, even putting it down for 2 years and picking it up again, I imagine you're a different person in 10 years
and
from
so
the beginning to the end. So
you're reading and you're like, what was this? I still have paper. It was so funny. Somebody's at my house and I'm like, why do you have this stack of papers on your ground, on the ground? And I said, oh, those were some of the first drafts of my book that have handwritten notes from me or other people. And, I kind of feel like a hoarder, but also how do you give that up? And then you look at some of the stuff you wrote and you're like, this was horrible. Who told me to continue based on this?
It's like reading your old diary or something. Yeah, that is so cool though. I'm glad that you just saw it to its birth, right? They say writing a book and publishing it is like birthing a baby. It's
it really is. It's for sure. And even, I take 2 years off, then a year, and it's good to kind of always know you have that thing to come back to when you're ready.
That's really cool. So we'll talk about what you're working on now a little bit later too. And again, like I said, we're going to get into the book, which is so juicy, and it has, I have lots of questions, and I don't want you to reveal everything because I want listeners out there, you guys have to pick up this book. You're going to love it. If you like the behind the scenes stuff that I know we all do, we're always talking about what's going on behind the camera. It's amazing. Abby is like a wealth of knowledge, and your character Ella/Bella, who has these, the secret identity, she spills a lot of tea in there too. So we'll get into that. But for now, we're going to hit some reality TV highlights because there's just some major storylines going on two shows that both you and I are obsessed with, and a lot of the listeners are too. Real Housewives of New York, of course, which for me are the MVPs of all the housewife cities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
Sure. Yeah.
I know you're in California, and I love Beverly Hills and OC, but New York, they win.
You know what I love really quickly about them is that they're kind of not afraid to roll up in the morning, no makeup, when they're like
totally
at their Airbnb in Mexico or St. Bart's or Turks and Caicos. Whereas I feel like the Beverly Hills, like Erica Jane would never just like roll up out of bed. Like she would need 4 hours, and she'll look great after those 4 hours. But I love that they glam it up for occasions, but they're not afraid to be on camera
looking rough, like we all do. You know, it's so relatable because these housewives are so unrelatable, 90% of the time, which makes them super fun to watch too. But yeah, there are those moments where they just all wake up and the cameras are there. It's like, I can't picture the cameras ever being there on the Beverly Hills bench, like you said, at moment of wake up without them being in full false eyelashes.
They would leave the room, I think they would have glam squads and they would not let the cameras in.
No, they would just bolt the doors. I mean, Erica won't even stay at Teddy's house. She has to like go to a hotel with her glam squad.
Wait, I met Teddy this weekend.
You did? Oh my God. Okay, before we get into New York, the other show we're going to talk about is Southern Charm. So before we do that, you have to give us this information. See, you have all those scoops.
I know. I was at a concert and she was there, and I was going to interview her. And before we started, first of all, she had the cutest L'Agence pink jacket. I asked her who made her pink denim jacket. It was hot pink. She was literally like, here, look. And I always feel so weird, like touching celebrity. You're always like,
getting her.
You're literally just like, oh, hi, like, nice to meet you. I'm like going in for your label. She couldn't have been sweeter. She was there with her husband, her daughter and stepdaughter. And before we even started the interview, I was just like, totally on an unprofessional note, Team Teddy over Team Dorit. And she just gave me this like kind of really, not snide because that's malicious, but kind of like a little like smirk and like smile. And it was just so cute, and I just loved her.
Oh, that is so funny. Did you do an interview with her? Is that why you were meeting up with her?
Oh, awesome. It was at a concert. There were a bunch of people and she happened to be there. So it was,
Can I ask what concert?
Or is that it was Wango Tango.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bunch of artists and then some different celebrities that introduce artists, and then some artists or some celebrities that are just invited that show up. Like a lot of Bachelor people were there and all that.
Oh yeah. Any other good sightings in the reality TV world specifically?
Well, I wrote an article about it. Ashley, I've never seen the Bachelor.
Ashley I
and Jared were there. Very lovey-dovey.
Who just made that crazy 45-minute video about our love story. Yes. Yeah, I've been hearing about it and I haven't watched it because I have zero interest in watching that.
No.
It's kind of cringeworthy that they even made it. Like, I don't know. It kind of reminds me of when the housewives renew their vows. I'm like, and cue the divorce in 7 months. Like, I feel like you shouldn't make videos about how in love you are with someone.
No, that, or it's like akin to getting a tattoo. Or you're right, like a vow.
Totally. Yeah, it's like
Pete
no.
Davidson and Ariana Grande, like you just sealed your fate. You're breaking up.
Right. Anything you do that puts it out there, like we're in love and we're going to show you and prove it to you. It's like thou protest too much. It just strikes me as very odd. So you saw Ashley I and Jared.
And JoJo and Jordan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So Jordan is Aaron Rodgers' brother. I'm in Wisconsin. I'm in Madison. So Aaron Rodgers is like all the rage here. So everyone watched that season of The Bachelor, even if they were dudes, or The Bachelorette, JoJo season, just to see Jordan's hometown date. And of course he never, he's estranged from Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers. So they never even showed that. Anyway, I digress. So, okay. So
My fault for bringing up Teddy.
No, I love it. So this is why I love your book too, because even though you cleverly cloak the celebrity names in there, it's like, we want to hear about these run-ins. They're real people, they're real people.
Well, they are, and we can get into this later, but there are, some of them are completely fictitious, or some of them are composites of different people, because you have to move the narrative along. So I sit there and think, oh, well, what kind of celebrity character would help push this story along in this kind of direction? So some of them are kernels of things that may have happened that I then exaggerated. Some of them may be completely made up. Some are composites, and everybody can kind of figure out who they think it would be for themselves.
In the book. Yeah. Actually, that's part of the fun of reading it, trying to figure out who these celebrities are, because some of them are like, oh, spot on, I know who this is. And then there were a few that I was like, okay, I really need to do a Google deep dive for an hour and a half and see if I can figure this out. And some of them I couldn't. Okay, but anyway, back to reality TV. Let's talk New York first.
Okay.
So first of all, have you watched the series, specifically New York, from the very beginning?
I have.
Ooh, me too.
All of them.
Yay. Yeah. You know what? This week, actually, on my Patreon, I'm going to do a season 3 Scary Island retro flashback with a listener. We're going to do a recap of that. So I've been rewatching the beginning seasons. I mean, it has really evolved. Feel like New York this season, though, for me, ranks among one of the best seasons, even though we're only 8 episodes in. How do you feel about this season in particular?
I agree. I think this and the season with the Tell Me It's Not About Tom, that right before Luann got married, those
2 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, they're pretty up there.
Why do you feel that is? Is it because Luann has just come out as just full frontal drama? I mean, this whole Tom thing, the marriage, the divorce, him cheating, the marriage, the divorce. She's about, she just got arrested in Palm Beach in this latest episode. Or do you think it's just the full cast? Like, what's the magic there?
Yeah, I think Sonia helps a lot.
Yeah.
I think Ramona now being divorced as well, you're kind of seeing another side of her. It was kind of because their lives have changed. They've changed so much. So it's almost like their characters, quote unquote, have evolved into these new characters, even though Ramona's been on since day one and she's an OG. I feel like she's very different. I feel like she tried to be a little bit more proper in the beginning, and she was so concerned about her school and much more about manners and stuff like that. And now she's just unapologetic for everything.
And that's kind of Luann's trajectory too, because Luann was all class with the Countess, and you don't introduce me with my first name to the driver, and all of that. And now she's like falling in bushes.
Now she's like, you want to come in?
Oh my God, that's so true. And then Bethany morphed from the little girl who could, trying to be on the come up, besties with Jill, falling out with Jill, her spinoffs. And now she's a completely different character, I'll say now. Who knows what she's like in real life? I don't. But she is certainly portraying herself in a totally different light these past few seasons. And this season, it looks like the whole cast is ready to turn on her. I feel like we're hanging on that moment right now.
I agree.
Have you heard any behind the scenes chatter about this?
I haven't. It's funny. A friend of mine, she used to be an editor for the show, and now she got promoted, so she doesn't do the day-to-day stuff anymore. So I'm always like, what? And she's like, I can't tell you anyway, but she's always says like, watch out for, 607 or whatever the season in the episode. I'm like, I don't know the numbers. Like, just tell me what week. But no, I haven't heard anything. I'm kind of, unless I'm at work, I'm kind of in my writing creative zone or like trying to have my own life. But I do feel like from everything that we've seen, you're right, that's how they're setting it up. And it's almost like when they were all going after LVP on a Beverly Hills season, where they kind of go for the person that's in charge and that.
Yes. That's really what it feels like to me, because what I'm thinking is, if this whole cast turns on Bethany, which the rift between Bethany and Carol is sort of the catalyst to this, it's the best thing that they can do for her, because then everyone rallies around the underdog. So they better figure out what they really want, because as soon as the whole cast attacks one person, even if that person is hated by a lot of people, and I personally don't hate Bethany, I love her as a housewife, it really is good for them. Just like a lot of celebrities, people love a comeback story. They love the fall, and everybody cringes and is outraged at whatever the fall is. But if that person comes back from it, especially if it's a gang up kind of thing, that's a great thing for their image. You know, you're in this world with real celebrities, you know, so I don't know if you can speak to that, but it seems to be true as a viewer, as a consumer of this culture.
I don't know, because I haven't been, you know, on like the PR side behind any of that. But whenever there is a scandal and you're going out to work, they're always saying, oh, you know, see how this person, you know, we want an update and blah, blah, blah. And then you have to ask anyone they've ever met or worked with, even if it was one day they worked together. Oh, how do you think so-and-so is handling themselves? Or have you spoken to them? Have you reached out to them? And any well wishes, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, so, yeah, the same questions, right? The
so
same
but it is. It's they want people to kind of rally.
They do. I know. So I feel like that might happen for Bethany, and it just like it did for LVP. You know, everybody turns on one cast member. But so specifically with Bethany and Carol, do you have a team that you're?
I'm Team Bethany.
I'm Team Bethany too.
Can I tell you, I think that I was listening to, I think it was last week, you were talking about it and how you were saying, I don't think Bethany knows how to express being hurt. And I totally agree with that. Yeah. And then I also think that for me, Carol has not necessarily gotten over losing her husband, sort of like Dorinda. And instead of drinking, I feel like she kind of like attaches herself to a girlfriend, like Bethany was saying, like whether it's Heather or me or whatever, but she also is like kind of scared to get too close because she's experienced such loss. So then she moves on. So I feel like that might be what happened with Bethany and Tinsley.
Oh my God.
She might have gone from Bethany to Tinsley, and then Bethany is hurt because like we were like homies, and now you just want to like wear self-portrait dresses and curl your hair and take selfies like Tinsley, which I love me a self-portrait dress, don't get me wrong. And I think that that's kind of, I feel like Carol, she's very cerebral and very smart, so she can kind of argue her way out of things. But I do think that Bethany had some points.
I do think so too. And she delivers them with such acerbic wit, or, you know, just even like that cutting kind of edge to her tone.
You don't have to like it. I loved that. Like, I feel like I was like, wow, I'm saving that. That's going.
I know, but she and Carol seemed to be okay in the Berkshires once they had that discussion. And Bethany was like, I really don't want to, you know, I don't want us to be at this level, and I want us to be friends. And Carol was like, okay, yeah, okay. And then afterwards, Carol's just holding on to it. What you said about that, I've never, ever, ever thought about that before. I'm so glad we're talking today. That is such an excellent point, that Carol might still be going through this almost like an attachment disorder in a way, not a real attachment disorder, but she did the same thing to Adam. And then she got really upset when Adam moved on and found another person to date, even though she was always like, yeah, I don't want you living with me. I like to pretend that I'm single, you know? So that is a really good point. But yeah, I'm Team Bethany too, because I think that in the end, it is about something bigger that Carol's holding on to. And I think that Bethany is kind of jealous of Tinsley, though, in a way, too. I think there's something deeper with Carol, and then maybe not being jealous, but not liking that Bethany's getting all this spotlight for being a humanitarian as well, because Carol has always been, I'm the person who, you know, she was on the campaign trail. Her whole storyline one year was about the election. She's always been like the smart housewife, or the cerebral, like you said, or the one who's involved in bigger issues. And now Bethany's doing something real, and whether she's doing it and she's having a lot of self-promotion, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter.
She's helping people. About her,
she's literally helping human beings.
And she didn't send people to help them. She did herself, which I think is a lot says a lot. And there was something I was going to say about Tinsley and Cara, but now I'm just blanking. So we can.
That's okay. We can move on.
Yeah.
If you remember something important about Tinsley, throw it in, because you got to throw that chick a bone. She doesn't have that much interesting stuff going on. So.
I know.
I know, it was so Dorinda. This whole cast minus Tinsley, who I even like on the cast. I think she works, but the whole cast are such heavy hitters. I mean, Dorinda, she would be the housewife who reigns supreme on any other cast. But she's just a player because there are so many heavy hitters on New York.
Mm-hmm.
All of them could run their own show. Truly. So Dorinda versus Sonia, they're all about like each other's pain, and Sonia is just so lost in Sonia world. Like I said, I've gone back and watched these previous seasons, and it was like so strange to me to watch. Season 3 is when Sonia first came on.
Mm-hmm.
How like relatively normal she used to be. And in the present moment, I mean, she was the one who talked Kelly Ben-Simone off the ledge at Scary Island, which is shocking because now we're in season 10 and I feel like Sonia would be Kelly Ben-Simone on Scary Island. She would be the one unraveling completely. So, but what do you think about this whole argument between Dorinda and Sonia about losing a husband? What is that really about?
I mean, listen, I've never been married, so I do not know what it's like to have a spouse die or be divorced. But I think that it's almost like, I don't know if it's a way to kind of rationalize their behavior for themselves, and that's what they use. So when it's attacked, they get very defensive.
Yeah.
I personally do think that death is a little bit more serious, regardless of the circumstances, whether she cheated or whether they just got divorced. It doesn't matter. Like, you still can interact with them if you would like to. You don't have any unspoken last words. I think that for Dorinda probably didn't have a lot of closure, it sounds like, which is why it's so hard for her to move on, and she hasn't been able to accept a new life. And for Sonia, maybe it's just because she's clinging on because he is still around. But I don't think it's really fair for Sonia to say it's the same thing, to be honest.
I don't either. And I don't know that she was necessarily ever saying that as much as Dorinda interpreted it to be that way. But that's, I agree with your sentiments. I think there is no real comparison when it comes down to it. I also think Dorinda has admitted she doesn't have closure. And even her relationship with John is maybe not what she would choose now, as opposed to, she chose him very shortly after Richard died. And so she's like, I'm not that person anymore who's so needy and who's so vulnerable. But the big moment on the flight to Puerto Rico when Bethany called her a drunk, what was your reaction? That everybody had a reaction to that. And so what was your reaction then? And is it any different now?
Well, my reaction when I first watched the episode was, I thought we've been here before. I mean, I feel like this isn't the first time Dorinda's kind of gone, I remember that the martini train she has bought many a ticket to. So I feel like we've had this discussion before. So that's why I was a little shocked it was actually such a big deal. I think
it was the words. I think it's because Bethany said you were a drunk.
Yeah. I almost feel like it would be worse if she said, though, I think you're an alcoholic. Like, a drunk almost makes, like, a drunk is somebody that like goes down to the bar and has too many too often. An alcoholic is like an addict. Like, so I almost feel like she not made light of it. And listen, of course it's an accusation, but I don't think it was something that like damaged her life or career, because we've seen it so often. I think Bethany planned to have a talk with her, which was calculated, but I don't, and Dorinda is kind of a bitch to her when she drinks, and she does get.
That was a cringeworthy scene with those other people there. And so, I mean, everyone was cringing through that, even though I love a good Slorinda toast when it's just the ladies, when it's just the cast members, and she's like
subtitles to see what she said.
Total subtitles under her words. She's stabbing herself in the hand, or like at the Berkshires this last week, she's like planting her face in a lit candle cake.
Yes.
I mean, so I get behind those moments of Dorinda, and I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite, but when she was in front of Bethany's partners and getting like belligerent and crazy, and you really couldn't understand a word she said, it was like, it transported me back to like family moment. Everybody has those moments with like, you know, the drunken relative and you're just like cringing. It felt so awful. So I thought, of course, Bethany has to address it. But then Dorinda was saying she set me up. I think that is BS.
I missed that.
Yeah, she said it in her blog. So Dorinda came out and said, Bethany had me drinking all day and I didn't know we were going to dinner with those people. So at the last minute, she had me going and I'm like, wait, okay, really? You don't have a call sheet? You don't know what's being filmed that day? There's cameras in that restaurant. They had to get pre-production in there for lighting. This is not a spring on you. You're not out at Subway getting a sandwich. You know, like this is at a formal restaurant with all of these people who had to sign releases. So I just thought that whole thing was BS. But yeah, she claims Bethany set her up and she had no idea they were filming that night.
That's crazy.
How could that be?
Listen, even if it's true, I would just, there are housewives that have opted out of things before. I don't think she necessarily had to show up.
Totally. That's true. That's true. Okay, so moving on to Southern Charm, because I really truly could talk to you about New York for way too long. So sorry, I belabor it forever. So moving on to Southern Charm, which is another show that I had no prediction that it was going to go this way, but it is really becoming so dramatic because of Thomas Ravenel's, his behind the scenes, behind the camera allegations, which we are not going to get into on this podcast. But everybody has read about them. I've done interviews with victims. It's truly on camera about this new girlfriend, Ashley Jacobs, who seems to have been brought in to like unify the country against her, because we don't agree on politics and, you know, many things in this country, but like everyone can agree that they just hate this chick.
Yeah.
I mean, she is like one of the most evil Bravo celebrities that has appeared on our screens.
Call her that though.
Let's not. Yeah, you're right.
That's what she wants.
You're right. Let's call her. She's one of the most evil random chicks that's appeared on a Bravo show in a long time. I mean, is she, what do you think of her? I'll just open it up. Give me your thoughts on Ashley Jacobs.
I do think that she's a bit of a lunatic. I've read something on, I think in one of the Facebook groups I'm in, somebody posted a screenshot of her Instagram page when she's still allowed commenting, where she said that she was acting and bringing the drama. And okay, I can believe that you're enhancing and exaggerating some things to try and get more screen time, but why cast yourself in that role as the villain?
Right.
If you're going to try and make this your new thing. She's way too extra for me. The desperation, like I want to just get her an IV because she's so thirsty. Like
desperation is a good word. It is like looking at the face of desperation.
And the way that she goes about things and her clinginess to Tom, and even if I don't know if that part's in acting. I mean, listen, she did move across the country after knowing him for like what, a week or two or
like
something,
weeks.
And then he leased her an apartment, and I mean, it seems very toxic. She seems very toxic.
Yeah, and when Catherine described them as mental patients who are like crazy together, that's exactly what they look like this last episode. Yeah. And so to me, looking at her and him, you and me against the world, you know, and we've seen this a time and time again with celebrities and regular people alike, non-celebrities, you know, someone who will bond together over everyone else hating them. And I'm like, well, if that's what she's trying to do, she's accomplishing it, because people really hate Thomas Ravenel right now for his own reasons.
I don't think she's that smart.
And then people really hate her. I don't think she's that smart either. So she's accidentally creating a bond between them, maybe. I've heard, though, behind the scenes, here's some gossip, that she actually has been asked to move out. Like, he wants to end things with her, but she's pulling a Seinfeld, like, I do not accept the breakup. And she's not leaving. And she's posting all of these crazy things on Instagram, like, oh, look, my boyfriend's bringing me dinner. Oh, I have the best boyfriend in the world, da-da-da. And Thomas just posted a video of he and Catherine dancing. Did you see that?
I did see it.
they were dancing and like having fun with their kids. They were dancing to like a Britney Spears song or something. I don't know what it was, but it looked really fun. And I'm like, what is happening here for real?
I think it was just co-parenting. I think that
Right.
she is trying to put her kids first, and that it doesn't do them any good to see any vitriol between their parents.
Agree.
And I think she probably is like dying on the inside, but it looked like it made the kids happy. So I actually commend her for that, because I think that she's been through a lot with Thomas, you know? So I don't think
I am rooting for her.
I am too.
She's so really rooting for her.
Committed to change. She's not that person that says, I'm going to do something different. She does something different.
And she is in a broken system down there. I mean, when she said, you know, that just shows you what men with power and money can do, because he doesn't have to get drug tested. He doesn't have to go through counseling, and he's got his own issues, allegedly. But she's doing it all because she says, if I step out of line one iota, he can take my kids. Now, if he steps out of line, and we know he's got like a bag of dirt dragging behind him right now, he still has the kids, and because he's had the money and the power. And he even said that on the show. Did you catch that a couple of weeks ago when he was at Patricia's dinner? And he said, I have all the money and all the power. What is she going to do? When he was referring to Ashley Jacobs. I'm like, right there, that clip tells us everything we need to know about what Catherine has been through. You know?
I agree.
Oh, it's the Ashley thing though. I guess I wonder right now, for the show's sake, if she is going to show up on the reunion, if Thomas is even going to show up on the reunion, and how the cast is going to react to her when they're allowed to finally. You know what I mean? Like, are they going to pull a, you know, season 1 Vanderpump Rules and come at each other? Or are they too polished now to really go there? Because you can tell they all really despise her. But will they actually do that? You know?
Well, first of all, if she's invited to the reunion, I don't think there's a chance she's missing it. I don't think she would let that opportunity slip. But I think she'd even go without Thomas if Thomas didn't show up.
I agree. I think she would like crash it like single white female on the outside, like slip in the back door. Yeah, she really wants the spotlight. And okay, we won't go to her pictures and stuff, but she's looking unwell right now.
Yeah.
So physically, mentally, I'm worried about her. I mean, I can hate watch her, definitely. Like, I'm not concerned for her in a personal way, but I am concerned for her as a human. She does not look well. She doesn't seem well. She doesn't look well. It's not a good situation. Southern Charm has gotten really dark this year.
It has. It does have its nice little moments of levity, though, with
it does
fishing and crabbing and all that fun. It's Craig sewing, you know, that will.
I know. That's true. That's true. There's enough cast members that I think they could move on, even if the cast gets a shakeup. You know, there are rumors of T-Rav being fired. I think the show could weather that. Do you?
Yeah. I mean,
some people don't.
You've lost so many housewives that, like, Bethany, you know, and she was gone from New York for a few seasons, and it was a different show, but it was still a fun show that did well. I think we've lost.
Right.
I mean, I was reading something about, and not to get into it, but the Roseanne thing, you know, what if they just replaced her? And people are saying, you know, we had 2 Darrens on Bewitched. We replaced the mom on Fresh Prince. Like, I think we can survive without T-Rav.
I think we can survive without T-Rav too. And that cast is an ensemble cast. And I think Catherine might come out. She's going to come out of this the star, you know, which is like a karmic payback for what's happened, because she was accidentally put on the show in the first place. And then she became one of the main players. So that's interesting. I think it can weather losing him too. So let's get to your book. I want to get to your book according to a source. I'm holding it up for the video watchers right now. If you are not seeing this, I'm going to link it up in the show notes. It's the cutest cover ever. I love this cover. This is such a fabulous cover design. Did you choose this, or was this?
What happens when you write a book is at some point you get an email and it says, here's your cover, like blah, 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 like, let me know what you think. And prior to that, you get an email from your agent right after you sign your contract that says, you're going to get an email with a cover, and do not respond immediately. You need to let it sit with you. Because if you say, great, then they think it's 100% a go ahead. And then when you want to change, they start to get upset. So I got a first draft, and it was always a girl with sunglasses, but she was very, dated. You know, there were more cat eye sunglasses.
Yeah.
The hair was very much like Marilyn Monroe / Donald Trump emoji hair. And so I was just like, it was not my favorite. Like, I liked the idea, but the execution was not really great. And so I kept saying, no, like, she has to be like this girl that you want to hang out with and you want to follow. And so then I, was sending them some photos, and I said, we need to change her glasses, and they were really great. And that's what we finally got at the end. And I'm really, really happy with it. And I'm happy that I pushed for it, because, you don't want to be difficult, but also
it's your book. It's the first impression.
People judge books by covers. That's why we have a cliche.
That's why the cliche is there. Absolutely. And when you get it, you don't want it to feel like it's some kind of throwback, because it's very current. Yeah. I'm glad that's good you fought for it. So the main character in this book is inspired, I would assume, by your life, as a Hollywood reporter. And her name is Ella, but she goes by Bella as her secret identity when she's doing undercover freelance reporting for a fictional magazine in the book called The Life. And it's really about how this dual identity leads to her unraveling, and both personally and professionally, and how she comes out of that a different person, but also she doesn't, I love in this book, and I won't give anything away, but she doesn't change entirely. She's still in this world, and she's still a part of it, and she's still doing behind the scenes work, but she changes her entry point and her stance on it. And I just I loved that. I loved the whole arc of the story. So tell us about the character, how you came up with her. It was a 10-year journey, it sounds like. Yeah. Did she grow with you? Is she completely separate from you in 90% of the ways? Like, how would you describe Ella versus you?
Maybe completely separate for me in 85% of the way, but there are, of course, elements of her personality that my personality that I infused into her. And I think, again, to fit in with narrative, there's a lot of stuff that I added, I don't have a sister. My mother, knock on wood, thank goodness, is not going through any sort of health crisis. So those elements were all things that I brought in. But I did really want to explore the sort of actions and consequences side of this job, or entertainment, or reporting in general, and how we really need to think about what we do, because things are, if you're in the media, broadcast to so many places, and it's not just whatever outlet you're with. They get picked up by outlets in different countries. And how does that affect the actual person? Because these are actual people at the end of the day. So I did want to kind of take a look at that through her, which of course everybody is not in a situation where something that they write or see or report from an interview is going around the world, but all of our actions do have consequences. And how do we reconcile that, and how do we make things right if we've made a mistake?
Yeah, because it really is about her making amends at the end. So just to give everyone out there who hasn't picked up the book yet, you should. It's coming out in paperback June 18th. 19th, sorry. Yeah. June 19th is coming out in paperback. It's available in hardcover now, Amazon or any booksellers out there, according to a source. The real story for me was her making amends, because she realizes that the gossip and the inside scoops or the salacious stories, they helped her career. And she was sort of in this cutthroat career as a freelancer, fighting against other freelancers in this point system for the magazine about who's going to get fired, who's going to keep their job. But it ended up having real consequences in her inner circle, and then bigger ramifications. too, with stars who she, had just passing relationships with, really. Do you feel like that's because you felt that when you were working in this industry, that at first it felt a certain way, just fun and light, but then you saw the more serious side of gossip?
Yeah. And also even just when you had to ask questions that you knew somebody was involved in a scam, and that's your job, but it's like super uncomfortable. Sometimes I'm like, I feel like I didn't get paid enough to be this uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to ask my friends these questions. I feel like if we're just having cocktails, that's invasive. And now it's like, hi, nice to meet you. So do you have a problem? Or like, how do you feel after your arrest? Or,
right. You have to ask really invasive questions.
Yeah. It's not my favorite, to be honest. And they are real people, and you'll see some people like they kind of get deer in headlights, or they get really uncomfortable, or I don't want to talk about that. And I get it. And you do see the other side of these people and how these stories kind of affect them or their career and their career options.
Yeah. And their options too. So when you were working as a freelance reporter, did you have to go through publicists, or did you do, were you ever in these, undercover situations without incriminating yourself or anyone else? Did you have any moments where you got a scoop unbeknownst to them, or any sensational stories like that?
I mean, I've definitely had, because on the red carpet or in one-on-one interviews, sometimes publicists will literally hover over you as you're asking. First of all, they'll say nothing personal if you're starting, and you're just like, okay, well, great. Like, that was pretty, like, nobody cares about this project. They just want to know personal. And so you have to kind of sneak it in after you butter them up and say like, and then at the end it's like, we gotta ask or else like I'll get fired. And you do it in like a voice that's very non-threatening. But they'll say, even if their client answered something, sometimes they'll say like, cut that, don't put that in, take that quote out. And I always like would just like, I would tell my bosses, I was like, per the publicist, but like, that's not my call, to take something out. I can't do that. Really. That's their job. Or, I've definitely seen people, I've been at after parties for things before at people's homes, which I never wrote about, but somebody that maybe just got back from rehab, but yet they're doing bong rips. And I know pot is not, what they were in for, but it's not really sobriety either. So I've seen some of that stuff, and just publicly professing like, oh, I feel so much better now that I'm clean and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, not so much.
Yeah, I've seen differently. So, and Ella/Bella in the story walks that line too, where she's trying to get into these parties and she's hanging out at the clubs and she's seeing the celebrity who is claiming to be sober or whatever, right, or faithful to a boyfriend, and something like that happens in the book, and she knows the real story behind the scenes, and it's up to her whether to deliver this story to the Life, this magazine who wants these scoops, or to keep the celebrity's dirt private, because she's in this reporting category. Do you feel like, so magazines that we read that say according to a source, is that still going on? This idea that there are people out there in undercover capacities who are overhearing things or seeing things and feeding it to the magazines? Is that truly how it goes?
Yeah. I mean, every magazine or every outlet has their own way of collecting information, whether it's undercover or sometimes, it's the publicist. Like if there are cheating rumors or split rumors, a publicist will sometimes call an outlet or the paparazzi and say, so-and-so are going to be having dinner at this restaurant tonight. So that way they get photographs together. There's reporting where, they were super lovey-dovey feeding each other dinner and they were laughing the whole time. Or sometimes it's a source very close to a celebrity. Like it could even be like a sister or something, or you never know. And some magazines or outlets pay for things, some don't. And the ones even that don't, people will kind of call up source info. It's a little bit, it's kind of a mixed bag depending on the outlet and whoever the person is.
You know, we see this play out on Housewives, don't we? Where, I mean, look at even New York this season. They're like, you went to page 6. Well, I know you were the source on that story. Well, I just saw this in the press. Da, 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 da. I mean, back in the day, in season 3, like I said, I'm watching Scary Island season now. It was Jill and Bethany fighting about, I know you put that story in that I was pregnant. I know I didn't. So it's like, yeah, you don't have to have a source in a lot of these publications that's named. As long as someone tells you on the sly, you can run it. And then it becomes becomes the story. Who told you this?
Right.
You know? Interesting. So Ella in the story, I'll call her Ella because that's her true name. Her identity is Bella. She has this celebrity friend who she's very close to. And I loved how that was part of the narrative, really driving the narrative, because she knew her as a real person, you know, coming up through the ranks in Hollywood. And so that really gave her perspective of what it was like to talk about celebrities and then for them to have real outcomes, because she saw it happening to her actual friend. Have you ever been in this position where you're good friends with someone, but you also are reporting on them? Or is that just something fictional that drove the arc of the story?
For the most part, it was something fictional. I do have a few friends, but it's more like, you know, if they're on a carpet, I make sure that I interview them and write an article about them so they can hopefully get the press. But nothing. So like, usually I'm a very much so like, I would never want somebody to do that to me or betray my confidence. So most things are off the record, and, you know, it's nobody like, I can't even think. It's not like J-Law, you know what I mean? Like, but I mean, not that I would spill her secrets either.
Right.
But for me, and also, to be honest, like, this has been such a great platform, and I did get to write a book or a novel because of it, but this is not my dream. So it's not like I'm trying to advance myself in celebrity journalism. So it's never been something where I've thought like, oh, like if I just gave this one scoop, maybe I would get to this position, this higher ranking. So because I hate to say I don't care, because you always want to do a good job, whatever you're doing, but because that's not my end game, it's not a valuable thing for me to betray someone or lose a friend or anything like that. Not that it would be anyway, but I'm just saying there's even less of there's negative incentives now.
Well, I think this is why, you know, people in certain positions or people who are rising through the public eye are scared about who they can trust, because at those lower levels or maybe at entry levels, you know, it is all about getting a scoop, and knowing something about a celebrity can be currency for you. But for you, where you're at, this isn't currency for you. This isn't what you're not like trading on their secrets to advance yourself, which is
exactly. This is like, I'm not waiting tables while I'm trying to make it as a writer and actress. So it's nice to have that perspective a little bit, to have that pressure off. But there are places where there's source meetings and story pitches, and you have to, you know, bring in a certain number. You have to have a certain number of sources and be getting stuff every week.
Yeah.
And that must be very stressful.
You have to create drama sometimes, or just create something out of nothing, I would imagine, you know, or just a small tip. So I want to know what you're doing now, because you said this isn't your end game. This isn't the world you're in anymore. The book is fabulous, but it was built on something you used to do. What are you doing now? What kind of projects are you working on?
Well, I'm still doing some interviews, just because, you know, everybody's got to do their job. But so we're working on developing the book into a television show. So hopefully, I mean, you know, who knows, but hopefully that comes to fruition. And
this would be a fantastic television show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be cool, because I did do acting for a long time as well. That's what I went to school for. And I would probably take not the lead, but one of the smaller parts, which would be fun.
Amazing
to do and beef it up for the show a little bit. But that would be fun, because that's like my end game. I'd love to be able to create a show that I'm on. I'd love to be a Mindy Kaling, Tina Fey, Tracy Wakefield, something like
Yes.
that. And then I'm working on a rom-com right now for some people, which is really
Writing
fun.
one?
Yeah. So we're in the second draft on that, and we'll see how that goes. And then some other television projects and some film projects and pitching, and nothing yet to really report or that I can talk about, but hopefully, yeah, I'm excited. I know some different genres too. I've got the rom-com, and then there's some more serious stuff. I'm working on a limited series with a very talented writer director in a completely different world. So
Wow.
that's fun. Yeah.
So you're doing writing, but you are going to ultimately hope to get back into acting if this becomes a series. Would you ever even conceive of getting into the production aspect? I mean, because you're
Like producing.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
producing.
because I love to have control. For sure.
Fabulous.
Directing, not for me, but
Yeah,
producing for
producing.
sure. And acting, yeah, it's been, crazy just with all of the writing and the book and work and all of that. So it's something I went back to class and kind of re-oiled my gears for acting and
I love it.
all of that kind of stuff. But it's, writing, I don't know how it is for everybody else, but I kind of need to go into a hole for like 9 hours a day. So it doesn't leave much for anything else. So I'm trying to get those other creative muscles flexing again.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so happy for you. That sounds awesome. If this becomes a series, sign me up. I will be talking
Oh,
about it. I mean, because
thank
when I was
you.
reading this, I thought, I wonder if this will be optioned for a movie. It seemed like a perfect movie, but a TV series, even better because it can go on and on and on.
Yeah. And there's so much that couldn't fit in the book
Yeah.
narratively when you have to have that beginning, middle, end structure that you could kind of put into a show. So
Yes.
hopefully that works out, and we'll see kind of what that brings. And, if there's even more interest in the book, and you want to buy the paperback on June 19th or the hardcover now, that always helps.
Yeah, please do. You guys buy it. According to a source by Abby Stern. I really did. I think I said it to you. I read it in a week. I read it in about 2 weeks, and it was because I was savoring it. I was reading it every night, and then I just picked it up and started reading it during the day because I couldn't wait until the next night to read it, because it truly is one of these. I think my listeners are going to love it because it's behind the scenes, it's juicy gossip, it's this insider view, but it has a ton of heart. It's not just, I mean, it's a fun beach read, take it on vacation with you, but when I was reading it, I was invested in what was going to happen to this character. And then
Oh,
also
thank
her
you.
circle, there's a good romance in it. There's a best friend relationship that I think, even if we're not friends with celebrities, you can relate to it. It's very relatable. It's a great, well-rounded character too. There's no one who's good or evil in it. I love that. You're a great writer.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really wanted to make her well-rounded because none of us are perfect. And
We're humans.
yeah.
She's very human in it. And I thought, and I didn't touch on this, but you also wove kind of like the recovery aspect of Hollywood in there, 12 steps and people getting sober and things. It's such a big part of, celebrity lifestyle, and all of us can relate to that, I think, on some level. And so I thought you did that with a lot of heart and generosity as well.
Thank you.
It's something people don't write about a lot. I was happy to see how that was woven into her story, even though she didn't go through that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
getting just touching on it and seeing how celebrities, they face their own issues and they're real people in that world too,
Yeah.
you know? So very cool. I loved reading it. I hope you have continued success. I
Thank
hope it
you.
becomes a TV show. You
I
could be the
do
next Kyle Richards.
too. I know. I'm
So
like, oh, Kyle got a show. Like, great.
right, right.
Like,
I know. But you will too. I bet.
congratulations, but
I guess, Kyle. Yeah. So tell us where people can find you. And,
and they can
yeah.
find me on Instagram and Twitter at Abby Stern, ABBYSTERN, and on Facebook at Abby Stern Writer. Those are the best places.
Awesome. And they can buy the book on Amazon, paperback, June
Amazon,
19th.
barnesandnoble.com. Yeah. And then other places as well. But those
Pretty
are the
much
two big
anywhere.
online. Yeah.
Yeah. If you Google According to a Source by Abby Stern, you're going to find it a ton of places. It's out in hardcover now, and you should get the hardcover just for the beauty of the cover alone, because it's going to look great behind me on my bookshelf.
Oh,
Face it
so
forward. Yeah.
it's like you're Watch What Happens Live, you know.
I know, right? My little janky studio
books.
here. I know. I'll put it on display right behind my head.
Aw.
So it was so nice talking to you and meeting you. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you so much. I had such a good time. Anytime I can talk about housewives and spill some tea about that, you know.
I know. Maybe we'll do this again. Maybe when the next Housewives series comes on, I think OC will be coming back next. Maybe we'll get on the phone and talk about that. That would be great.
Oh, yes. I was just watching, I had it on in the background yesterday. They were doing the last season or the last few seasons. So I was doing other stuff. It was on, and I was just, Vicky and Tamra.
Takes you back. I know. So, all right. Well, I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, Abby.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.